Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the 116th annual meeting of the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis. I am Beth Klapper, and it is my privilege to serve as board president of our Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis. I want to thank you, our community, for joining us tonight, whether you are here in person on the Max and May Simon Jewish Community Campus or on Zoom for our first multi-access program. Special thanks to our hardworking and dedicated clergy, agency executives, and presidents for being here tonight. And I'm going to mention them. Rabbi Justin Kerber, Congregation Beth Shalom. Rabbi Dennis Sasso, Bethel Zedek. Todd Maurer, President, Bethel Zedek. Eloise Paul, President, IHC Board of Directors. Eric Kohler, JCC CEO. Brian Modiano, JCC Board President. Lori Moss, JFS Director. Barbara Herman, JFS Committee Chair. Miriam Gettinger, Hasten Hebrew Academy Principal. Monica Rosenfeld, Hasten Hebrew Academy President. Evan Lubine, CEO, Hooverwood Living. Miriam Dant, JCRC Board President. Last year was the first time in our history that we were unable to meet in person. And tonight's annual meeting is the first time we are able to gather in a limited capacity, as well as offer this program virtually on Zoom. I can definitely say that it is bittersweet being in person tonight. It feels like a reunion, finally being able to see so many familiar faces in the same room. But I wish we could all be here together. Thankfully, the era of strictly Zoom programming has an end in sight. At this time last year, the global pandemic and civil unrest began altering our way of life. Unfortunately, but predictably, this new normal has had negative consequences for both Jews in the United States and abroad. And just last month, Israel found itself under attack again and suffering a barrage of thousands of rockets fired at civilian areas across the country. Lives were senselessly lost and homes destroyed. Synagogues were desecrated. And while a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas appears to be holding, anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist rhetoric has reached dangerous levels on social media, on school campuses, and even on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. We are reminded that we, at the Jewish Federation, can and must be stronger than hate. We must continue to commit ourselves to stand and fight for a world free of anti-Semitism, racism, and bigotry in all its ugly forms. We must strive to be an example for our children and grandchildren on how to treat and respect one another so that they can see and understand the value of pursuing a more just and peaceful world. I am thrilled that so many of you have joined us this evening. We have a wonderful program which will feature this year's theme, Reflections, as we review the past year and share our vision for the remainder of 2021 and beyond. Our program tonight will highlight some of the great work of our professional security team and include a video tribute to the many unsung heroes of Federation and our agencies and synagogues. This evening will conclude with the business portion of our meeting, and our awards program will be postponed to a later date when we can again celebrate our honorees in person. Our program tonight will be around an hour and a half, so please stay with us through the end if you can. First, it is my honor to introduce the President and CEO of the Jewish Federations of North America, Eric Fingerhut. Tonight, he shares a special message for our greater Indianapolis community.
Hi, I'm Eric Fingerhut. I'm the President and CEO of the Jewish Federations of North America. At this annual meeting of the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis, it is fitting to note that this past year has been one of pandemic and strife. but also one of vaccines and fresh starts. We have reached the moment of reopening because scientists worked together and because our community came together. The amazing, incredible, extraordinary response of this great federation and of the Jewish Federation system to all of the issues we have faced in the past year may have surprised some, but didn't surprise any of us. We are here, year in and year out, building and sustaining the infrastructure of Jewish life, training the leaders, and serving the myriad of organizations that enable the Jewish people to flourish, to be healthy, safe, caring, welcoming and inclusive, educated and engaged, involved in civil society, and deeply connected to Israel and the global Jewish people. The UJA Federation of New York used to have a slogan that we were there on 9/11 because we were there on 9/10. This is a contemporary statement of one of the most fundamental principles of Jewish belief. The great scholar Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz taught that there are two types of charity. One is fixed and organized, and the other is spontaneous and stems from compassion. God gave us many mitzvot, many commandments regarding tzedakah, so that those in need are not dependent on generosity alone. The advantage of fixed, obligatory charity is that it becomes a holy obligation, a part of our consciousness. Its value is immeasurably greater than an act of kindness that is fleeting, that is based on emotion. Still, you should open your heart again and again, our tradition teaches us. Compulsory charity is not enough, but we don't let the future of our community depend on the whims of compassion. We do this work because we know, whether it is the best of times or the absolute craziness of the past 18 months, that we need to be here serving our community every day, every week, every month, and every year. And that is why I'm so proud to be here with you, to thank you, and to encourage you to do even more in the coming year. I know we all hoped that we would come out of the pandemic into a world of sunshine, but our world is in fact clouded with anti-Semitism, with security threats, and more. We will tackle these challenges as we tackled COVID-19 and the racial justice challenges of the past year. When the Torah is out of the ark, on Saturday mornings and on holidays, we say special blessings for people who've been called to the Torah, people who have new babies, who are b'nei mitzvah, weddings upcoming. We call them Misha Berach, meaning the one who blessed. Our ancestors should also bless those who are called to the Torah. And we also say a Misha Berach, v'chol mi she'oskim b'sorchei tzibor be'emunah, to all those who support the needs of the community, who serve the needs of the community with faith, with truth, with commitment, and with love. My friends in this great federation, thank you for serving the community be'emunah, with truth, with faith, and with love. Thank you for all you do. May you go from strength to strength. May the coming year be a year of health, safety, and well-being for you and your families, and for all the Jewish people, and for all the world. Thank you for inviting me to join you.
Thank you, Eric, for all that you have done for us on the national level. Please join me in observing a moment of silence to remember members of our Jewish community who have passed away since our last annual meeting, including the loss of 13 beloved Holocaust survivors, several longtime lay leaders, and those who passed from COVID-19. We remember the victims of terrorism, domestic, in Israel and around the world. Finally, we remember and honor those in the armed forces of the United States who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our great country, and those in the Israel Defense Forces who have given their lives in defense of the world's only Jewish state. Please pause. Thank you. Next, I would like to take a moment to recognize Brian Modiano for his time of service as president of the Jewish Community Center. Brian, who is joining us on Zoom tonight, began his term in 2018 and is completing his third year, the third of his term this week. Thank you so much, Brian, for your dedication and leadership in helping transform the direction of the JCC. And now we move on to honoring this year's scholarship recipients. I want to thank the members of our Academic Scholarship Committee for helping us support these impressive students who are pursuing their dreams through higher education. There are so many excellent students who apply for our very limited scholarship funds, so please join me as we congratulate these outstanding students. We have some here in person tonight and some who have joined us on Zoom. If you are here in person tonight, please stand when your name is called. The Eugene and Betty Friedman Scholarship is granted to deserving Jewish individuals seeking to further their education. Preference is given to foreign-born applicants and to those entering the fields of science, medicine, or technology. We congratulate this year's recipients, Olivia Goldblatt, Ryan Plaskoff, Daniel Gonzalez, Harel Halevi, and Joshua Goldstein. The Len Carroll Memorial Scholarship Fund is granted to deserving Jewish individuals seeking to further their education and recognizes academic excellence and volunteer experience in the Indianapolis Jewish community. Preference is given to foreign-born applicants. We congratulate this year's recipient, Jenna Hemmelstein. The Jules Dorfman Scholarship for Graduate Studies in Jewish Communal Service is granted annually to qualified graduate students in Jewish Communal Service, social work, or Jewish education. Congratulations to this year's recipients, David Heilbrunn and Ashley Flummenhoff. The Mark Peskovitz Outstanding Volunteer Leadership Scholarship was established through contributions made in memory of Dr. Mark Peskovitz. At the time of his death, he was a Federation officer and co-chair of our annual campaign. The Federation Board of Directors, in consultation with Dr. Ora Peskovitz, established this scholarship fund for a Jewish high school junior or senior with a record of outstanding service to the Jewish and/or general Indianapolis community. I would like to recognize Naomi Rucham, Mark's daughter, who is with us on Zoom tonight. Thank you, Naomi. Please join me in congratulating this year's recipients, Kyle Ginsberg and Eli Kurlander. Congratulations to all our recipients. We are excited to see big things from all of you. During the past year, there have been many individuals in our Jewish community who have done great deeds with little to no recognition. The frontline staff at Hooverwood Living and the healthcare providers who worked tirelessly to care for the sickest and most vulnerable patients during the pandemic deserve our heartfelt appreciation. A big thank you to the people behind the scenes who supported the frontline workers doing their job. Staff at our Federation, agencies and synagogues, our local clergy, Jewish Family Services staff, Safe Indy team, and JCC early childhood teachers and fitness instructors. Thank you for working tirelessly and pivoting the work they do to continue serving our community. On behalf of the board and the community, thank you for adapting to this crazy year and helping us navigate as we move our Jewish community forward. Here's a short video that showcases these heroes hard at work over the past year. love that last picture. Thank you once again to all our unsung heroes for the work you have done in our community. We are so very fortunate to have you. The beginning of the pandemic brought unprecedented challenges and community hardships. In the interest of protecting the health of our staff and the public, the Federation and its agencies adjusted to remote work environments and instituted cleaning and visitor screening protocols at all of our facilities in 2020. We would not have been able to sustain our mission if it wasn't for the generous support of the Jewish community, which stepped up and came together in ways we have fortunately not had to do in a very long time. Earlier this year, for the first time in our 116-year history, the Federation memorialized a servant leader who passed away in the fall of 2020 by naming a department in his memory. The Planned Giving and Endowment Department is now called the Charles A. Cohn Department of Planned Giving and Endowment. Chuck Cohn, of blessed memory, was a beloved leader of the Federation and particularly of its endowment and planned giving efforts. Jewish Family Services received an overwhelming amount of service requests. In 2020, JFS served 73% more families with food through Popsy's Pantry and launched a grocery store delivery service to 48 households. They also provided meaningful support to 87 Holocaust survivors through case management, support of mental health, food, and emergency financial aid. 16 partner organizations and more than 850 members have participated in training, webinars, workshops, and presentations by the Safe Indy team. This was launched in 2020. You will hear shortly from our Community Security Director, Grant Mendenhall, on the tremendous success of the team. Our Israel and Overseas Department formed a new group called Sliding Doors, comprised of international second-generation Holocaust survivors with our Partnership Together region. The Indianapolis group currently has 32 members involved in the program. This program hopes to also train them to speak about their families' experiences as part of the Holocaust Speakers Bureau. During the pandemic, while we couldn't get together in person, we launched a Connect with Purpose webpage, which offered Jewish resources and opportunities for community connection across all the synagogues and agencies. I'm happy to report that we've had close to 1,000 viewers on this page. Over the past year, we hosted more than 50 community Zoom programs and several smaller Zoom group meetings, and some totaling up to 350 people in attendance. We also partnered with Newfields for the first time, and in December, we welcomed more than 2,000 Jewish community members to a Latkes and Lights event. Participants enjoyed Hanukkah menorahs and Stars of David's shining in the Lily House windows, dazzled in the wonder of a Hanukkah-themed light show set to the Matzor, and sampled a one-of-a-kind holiday tasting experience, including latkes and safajanot. 2 youth philanthropy indie team boards, one of first-time participants and another of second-year participants, raised and granted $10,000 to the community. This year, 28 teens participated in this immersive learning opportunity. PJ Library and PJ Our Way sent over 7,500 books to more than 650 kids in the Indianapolis Jewish community so families can learn together Jewishly. Over the course of the year, families participated in online learning opportunities, socially distanced story walks, and received holiday-themed activity boxes to further enhance their PJ Library experience. The Mauer Jewish Community Library continued to provide programming through virtual book clubs, developing new collaborations with Partnership Together and Hooverwood Living, and continuing work with PJ Library. These partnerships will continue well into the future. As a graduate myself of the initial ATID group 13 years ago, it gives me particular pleasure to congratulate our 16 community members who completed the Prstowski ATID 5 Leadership Development Program. They began in person in January 2020 and pivoted their monthly meetings seamlessly to the virtual environment, wrapping up meetings in the spring of 2021 with their Israel experience expected to take place in April of 2022. Each of these graduates continue to further their Jewish community leadership by assuming board and committee roles in agencies and synagogues across Greater Indianapolis. We look forward to the coming year and can't wait to celebrate more of the great work we are able to do for our community. But as each of you know, we cannot do this without our community's financial support. The primary mission of our Jewish Federation is to raise the necessary funds, not only to sustain, but enhance our Jewish community. This has rarely been more critical than during 2020. And I'd like to extend a huge thanks to our annual campaign co-chairs, Jen Schwartz and Larry Turow, whose leadership during the past year enabled us to achieve a $4 million annual campaign, plus an additional $850,000 for a special community relief fund. I'd also like to commend our professional staff who, in the early days of the pandemic, reached out to community members for relief funds, which supported pandemic needs, such as ventilation systems, cleaning supplies, PPE, scholarships, and emergency assistance. And now we would like to show you another short video from our agencies. Each of our agency executives detail how they have pivoted their work over the past year, how they continue to adapt to doing the great work that they do, and some big plans that they have for the next year.
We feel very fortunate to have finished a year of live in-person school, a year of academic success, as well as an emphasis on social emotional learning. Yes, we adapted. We were able to adapt our lunch program the time that the students were without masks to eating in individual desks and eating outdoors in the serenity of nature. That's a COVID keeper moving forward. We were able to adapt programming to be able to include new technology and communication to allow for grandparents and other family members to participate in programs, another COVID keeper. And our Women of Valor program took place outdoors under the stars. So we really were able to adapt and make this the most productive year it could be. We look forward to next year. 98% of our staff is fully vaccinated, and we're hopeful to resume after-school clubs, especially our sports, our volleyball and basketball teams. We look forward to increased enrollment. We have 22 new students enrolled for next year. And we especially look forward to the launching of Giving Tree Early Learning, which is our early childhood program now open to the public. We also look forward to partnering with the JCC Shinshinim to bring Israel and extra Hebrew reading practice into our curriculum, as well as, importantly and significantly, Hooverwood, who in phase 1 will be renting some office space in our Cultural Arts Center, but moving forward will partner with us on intergenerational programming, shared transportation, and therapy services.
Welcome to Jewish Family Services. This past year has been a challenge for all of us, and particularly for the clients who depend on our services and programs for assistance. We've been able to keep the doors open here at Jewish Family Services since day one, and we're very proud that we've been able to adapt to meet the needs of our clients and community by offering much more personalized and person-centered approaches to assistance. Our food pantry has been open the entire time with increasing need. We've provided a great deal more emergency assistance, financial assistance throughout the community, as well as the emotional and tangible supports on a one-on-one basis. We're looking forward to moving forward. And we have meeting space now, as you can see, for one-on-one in-person meetings. We're hoping to find a way to open up additional programming and services, but we know that through the support of the Federation and the larger community, we've been able to adapt and offer so much more, even than we offered before at this time of increasing need. We thank you and looking forward to the next phase.
Evan Lubline here at Hooverwood Living. This past year we've learned a lot about each other here at Hooverwood, about where we need to be, where we need to go. This team here has done a tremendous job. We are a growing organization, healthy today. We know there's a lot of work to do.
The past year and a half has been very challenging for Hooverwood. We are looking forward to the indoor visitation, the opening of restrictions, and getting back to our new normal.
Hooverwood is growing. We are making sure that we have our needs today, but also the future. In late 2021, we will have hospice services with the Aaron Reuben Nelson Hospice of Hooverwood Living. We will also be opening the first Indianapolis Elder Abuse Shelter, which will be called Shalom Sanctuary. We are very proud here that the board of directors, along with the management team, has been able to identify these needs and bring them to the community for those that need it the most. We can't wait for you all to see a brand new Hooverwood. Please come on by and see our new marketplace that's just opening up in early June.
So first, on behalf of the Arthur M. Glick Jewish Community Center, our board and our staff, we thank the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis for their support for this past year. It was an incredibly difficult year, and we really could not have gotten through it without them. And our community has been incredible in their support too. Unlike many community centers, we virtually never closed. We had a 2-week closed period where the whole state was closed down, and then we opened up our early childhood program in April. When we opened that program, we learned how to open and operate safely so our staff, our members, and our families would be safe. And as we gained more knowledge and experience and statutes allowed, we expanded our services in June to operate our sports, fitness, and aquatics programming. And shortly thereafter, we opened up Summer Care, which was a new version of summer camp based on what was safe to operate for our children. And we've continued to open and expand our programs and services as we understood how we could do it safely for everyone involved, staff, families, volunteers, and community members. And we will continue to operate as we move forward in that safe fashion. We all feel welcome, comfortable, safe, and pleased to be coming back into the Arthur M. Glick Jewish Community Center.
Relationship building through Zoom is no easy task, but the JCRC didn't skip a beat. We conducted our first policy survey in nearly a decade to learn our community's opinions on domestic issues, Israel, anti-Semitism, and Holocaust education. We had 27 virtual programs, gave 36 media interviews, generated nearly 1,000 letters to elected officials, and K-12 students through the Holocaust Speakers Bureau. Through our student-to-student and Israel engagement fellowship programs, we helped local Jewish teens learn how to combat anti-Semitism and engage on Israel. As we look ahead to the next year, JCRC will conduct our first major fundraiser in October, a concert featuring local Holocaust survivor Frank Grunwald, to support our Stand Up, Speak Out initiative to combat anti-Semitism. JCRC will continue to do all this work and more to represent the Jewish community in the public square, and we're eager to start doing so in person.
Thank you so much to each of our agencies for working so hard during a tough year. I'm really excited to see what's to come from each of your organizations. Just over a year ago, we launched the Safe Indy Security Initiative with the hiring of Community Security Director Grant Mendenhall, a 30-year veteran of the FBI. In spite of the COVID-19 environment, Grant and Safe Indy have made great strides in establishing a proactive security culture across the Jewish community. Please join me in welcoming Grant for a Safe Indy 1-year update and forecast for year 2. Grant?
Good evening, everyone. It's really great to be at Lakin Auditorium, and it's really great to be a part of a at least partially in-person annual meeting. You know, I was privileged to be here 2 years ago in my capacity as special agent in charge of the FBI's Indianapolis division, when agents from my office were honored for their work in bringing to justice 2 hate-filled criminals who victimized Sheree Tefila and our entire community with anti-Semitic graffiti and incendiary devices. At the time, I had no idea that just a few months later, I would be fortunate enough to join you as Community Security Director. My position and the Safe Indy Security Initiative was born out of the vision and leadership of Debbie Grant and a number of lay leaders, including Chuck Cohen, who recognized the need for a focused community security program to counter the growing threats our community has faced over the last several years. Additionally, Lindsay Mintz and her team at JCRC helped lay the foundation and brought community security into focus in the years leading up to the initiation of Safe Indy. I also want to recognize my friend and day-to-day partner, Jeff Lincoln, who's up there, whose vision, work ethic, and knowledge of the community have been absolutely critical to the success of Safe Indy. For those of you that don't know, Safe Indy is a partnership between our entire community and the Secure Community Network, which is the official Homeland Security and Safety initiative of the Jewish community in North America. SCN works with communities across the US to develop and implement best practices, policies, and procedures that enhance the safety and security of the Jewish people. Our joint mission is clear: the protection of the Jewish community. While Safe Indy is not the first initiative of its kind, its development, community partnerships, and effective implementation has become a model for similar initiatives across the US. During the first 14 months of the program, Safe Indy has been focused on improving safety and security, primarily in the Indianapolis Jewish community, with a view toward potential statewide expansion beginning in year 2. With an overall emphasis on preparedness and prevention, this has been accomplished through assessing organizational risks and vulnerabilities, conducting security training, enabling effective incident response, and increasing the overall level of security awareness across the community. In short, creating a continuously improving safety and security culture in our Jewish community. Safe Indy's accomplishments to date have included the establishment of a crisis management leadership team, which would manage the strategic response to any critical incident that may occur in our Jewish community, the establishment of a community security committee, which regularly functions as a conduit for information sharing and collaboration between Safe Indy and representatives of our Jewish organizations, 13 security assessments completed at Jewish facilities, over 800 community members trained in topics such as countering active threats, situational awareness, cybersecurity, and fraud, more than 80 security consultations conducted, and $1.4 million in federal nonprofit security grant funding applied for by our Jewish community organizations. Noteworthy is the fact that over the last several months, 7 Jewish organizations outside of Indianapolis requested and received assistance from Safe Indy in areas such as COVID-19 safety protocols, security assessments, the nonprofit security grant application process, and training opportunities, all demonstrating the need to explore the potential expansion of Safe Indy to cover Indiana's broader Jewish community. With this in mind, and while continuing to emphasize service to the Indianapolis Jewish community, in the second year of the initiative, Safe Indy plans to conduct outreach to organizations across Indiana, of which there are at least 44 outside of Indianapolis, to assess security needs and resource availability to potentially support a statewide Safe Indiana security initiative. Finally, let's talk about why we're doing this. And Beth's already mentioned this. Facing the most dynamic and complex threat environment in American history, the US Jewish community continues to see unprecedented spikes in anti-Semitism and identity-based hate and violence. Deadly attacks at Pittsburgh's Tree of Life Synagogue, the Chabad House in Poway, California, and at Jewish sites in Monsey, New York, and Newark, New Jersey. And in recent days, an 80% increase in anti-Semitic activity in the US during the conflict in Israel underscore the potential for hate to erupt unexpectedly and lethally, and the need to reassess and enhance security in all American Jewish communities on an ongoing basis. Closer to home, Anti-Defamation League data from 2018 to the present reflects 171 anti-Semitic incidents across the state of Indiana, with 35 of these incidents taking place in Indianapolis. These incidents included anti-Semitic propaganda, harassment, and vandalism and the horrific hate crime at Sharei Tefillah in 2018. In 2020 alone, Indiana saw 74 incidents of anti-Semitism, with 14 taking place in Indianapolis. I should point out that these numbers are likely very much on the low side, as federal authorities consistently point to the nationwide underreporting of hate crimes and anti-Semitism. The threat to the Jewish community in Indianapolis and across the state is real, and it demands to be confronted with awareness, education, and vigilance, leading to preparedness and prevention. Please join me in continuing the mission to secure our Jewish community today, tomorrow, and for generations to come. Thank you.
Oh, we really appreciate, Grant, that you're with us, it's all that you do for securing our community. So thank you for all that you were doing. Okay. I would first like to begin my remarks by once again saying how wonderful it feels to be here back in the Lakin Auditorium. Even with our limited numbers as designated by county guidelines. But as the saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And I have really missed the personal interaction of seeing my friends and colleagues and our community members and the physical presence of us all being together in this room. Thank you to all of you who are joining us virtually. I love to see all those faces. Turn on your cameras if you are have your cameras off so we can see all of you. We have you on the screen in Lakin. It would be great to see all of your smiling faces. It has been my pleasure and the honor of a lifetime to serve as president of the board of directors of our Jewish Federation. Our theme for this year's annual meeting is reflections. And when reflecting on my tenure, thank you. Sorry, excuse us. We're hearing voices from overhead. Okay. When I was putting together my remarks, I was, of course, struck by the unprecedented challenges that we have overcome this year. We closed our Federation offices and our doors nearly 16 months ago. And we immediately began planning and transitioning for a variety of scenarios, some quite dire. Our Federation officers, staff, agency heads, and execs, and many committees met daily, often upwards of 20 hours per week, on how to triage our community needs and implement a feasible course of action. There were sleepless nights, emails and texts at all hours, and a genuine concern that some of our agencies could not keep up with the demand or might have to close their doors permanently. Our Federation will probably be forever changed in many ways, but I am happy to report that not only are we emerging from the pandemic intact, we have worked diligently to make many improvements to the transparency, structure, and long-term sustainability of our organization. Please indulge me as I have many acknowledgement and thank yous to offer. I would first like to thank Debbie Barton Grant, who has been our Chief Executive Officer for the past 7.5 years. Debbie and our Federation leadership have agreed to a mutual transition for a new Federation CEO. Debbie has truly been a passionate and dedicated leader for our Federation and tireless advocate for Jewish engagement and education. I welcome you all to visit our Federation website and to look for a feature article in the upcoming Federation magazine for a comprehensive listing of Debbie's accomplishments and a photo tribute to Debbie's leadership. Thank you again, Debbie, for your dedication to our Jewish community. I would also like to report that Katie Cantor and Gigi Marks Felsher are currently running the day-to-day Federation operations until a new CEO is in place. Thank you, Katie and Gigi, for volunteering to come out of your retirement and heeding the call to serve our community. We are all greatly indebted to you for sharing your time and talents as you are uniquely suited to lead our transition. The central mission of our Jewish Federation is to raise the critical funds needed to support our Jewish community. To that end, we have had another successful campaign this past year, and I would like to thank Michael Skolnick, Senior Director of Development, and Irina Brodsky, our Campaign Operations Manager, for all their hard work in fundraising and putting together amazing campaign events. A huge thank you to Josh Lodolo, Senior Director of Planned Giving and Endowment, Lee Vriesman, Major Gifts Manager, and Executive Assistant Pam Eicher for all their work in raising endowment dollars, as well as overall fundraising efforts. This entire development team worked together collaboratively to not only maintain our annual campaign at $4 million, but also raised, as you've heard, an additional $850,000 in COVID relief for our Federation agencies and Jewish community members. Thank you to Barry Wormser and Eric Ratner for co-chairing, for their hard work in co-chairing the P&A, which is the planning and allocations process to allocate our community raised dollars to our agencies and community partners. Thank you to the entire P&A committee who performed double duty this year in allocating not only P&A dollars, but the community relief dollars during the pandemic. Pivoting became the new catchphrase for our Federation engagement team, and they did a phenomenal job of creating impactful programs and unique online experiences during the pandemic. I would like to recognize and thank Margot Fox, Senior Director of Engagement, Paula Glansman Goldberg, Director of Women's Philanthropy, Michelle Bukai, Israel and Overseas Director, David Heilbrunn, Director of Youth Philanthropy and Connection, Robbie Alder, PJ Library Coordinator, and Marcia Goldstein, Mauer Jewish Community Library Coordinator. Collectively, you organized and supported our Pustowski at T5 Leadership Program, our Youth Philanthropy or YOFI program, our Women's Philanthropy and Lion of Judah Zoom programs. You brought us together through reading, either by way of book groups or PJ Library books for kids. You shared mobile museum exhibits in Israel and programs to support our Holocaust survivors. Thank you all for your creativity and content, teaching us new techniques and inspiring us beyond our Zoom calls. Of course, all of the great work that Federation does would go unnoticed if not for our amazing communications team. I would like to offer a big hug and tremendous thank you for all the great work that Andrew Kaczynski and our communications manager and Joel Bustamante, our creative digital coordinator, have done. In shifting to the virtual world this year, Andrea and Joel and the entire Federation staff have developed articles, graphics, videos, and stories to better tell our story to donors in our community. I would like to thank the Federation staff, who I affectionately say keep the Federation ship afloat. Thank you to Jeff Lincoln, our Director of Operations, Justin Weiss, our maintenance tech, who worked tirelessly during the pandemic to keep our campus safe, Grant Mendenhall, who you've heard from, our Community Security Director, and Michael Smoger and Josh Lee, our IT co-directors. Thank you to Vadim Inger for your accounting support. And last, but certainly not least, I would like to thank and acknowledge all the hard work and dedication that Erica Kroll, our CFO, has put into Federation this year. Erica, we appreciate all. Erica, your professionalism, attention to financial detail, and organizational support, particularly as it came to our PPP funds that kept us literally afloat, has been invaluable. Secondary to the Federation's main mission of fundraising is serving as the community convener, providing support to our constituent agencies and beneficiary organizations. To that end, I worked very closely with the presidents and executives of these organizations, meeting weekly during the height of the pandemic. There is not a more dedicated group of leaders. Despite the enormous challenges of the past year, all of our agencies have very successfully navigated COVID-19 and are well positioned for a post-pandemic success. Thank you again to Brian Modiano, JCC Board President, Eric Kohler, JCC CEO, for your phenomenal leadership. There were many JCCs that did not survive COVID, and Eric and the JCC staff and board made very tough decisions that enabled the J to weather the storm and now thrive. Thank you to the Hooverwood Living leadership, Evan Lubine, CEO, and Stacy Siegel, President of the Board of Directors. Thank you also Murray Firestone for his past leadership. There were so many challenges that Hooverwood Living faced, and Evan did an amazing job battling through this past year, while moving his organization successfully forward in an increasingly complex healthcare environment. I would next like to recognize and thank the JCRC for their vital role they have in our community. With anti-Israel and anti-Semitic behavior, you've heard from Grant, becoming more mainstream and appearing in seemingly all facets of society. The importance of combating the world's oldest hate and defending Jews has rarely been more critical since the JCRC's founding nearly 75 years ago. Thank you to Lindsay Mintz, JCRC Executive Director, and Miriam Dant, JCRC President, for their tireless efforts and advocacy on behalf of the Jewish community. Thank you to the JCRC staff, David Sklar, Aaron Welcher, Amber Mays, and Robbie Alder, and the entire JCRC Board of Directors. Another important aspect of our mission is to provide social services for the most vulnerable in our community. I would like to thank and recognize the important work that the Jewish Family Services performs for our community. Thank you for the amazing compassion and dedication of Lori Moss, JFS Executive Director, Barbara Herman, Committee Chair, along with the JFS staff, Rachel Katz, Julie Sandhelm, Christy Morris, Jack Breiker, Ruthie Gal, and Katja Klaus. JFS experienced a tremendous increase in the demand and need for help from Jewish households this past year, and we were able to meet those needs thanks to the dollars raised and the heroic efforts of the JFS staff. Mazel tov to our beneficiary partner, Payson Hebrew Academy, for their success maintaining in-person student learning during this difficult year. Thank you to Miriam Gettinger, school principal, and Monica Rosenfeld, board president, for your dedication to creating a Jewish learning environment that promotes not only academic excellence, but a spiritual bond and strong sense of commitment to the state of Israel. When I went back to look at my 2019 annual meeting remarks, one of my priorities was the comprehensive capital campaign to strengthen our campus and future of our community. While the pandemic forced us to press the pause button on our campaign timeline, I'm happy to report that we have a very robust plan for this transformational project for our community. I would like to thank my capital campaign co-chairs, David Kleinman and Brad Bell, whom I have had the privilege of working with the past 3 years. Their visionary leadership and experience has been an invaluable asset in this very important community endeavor. Thank you to Brad Gershman for lending your expertise, time, and planning. Thank you to Claudette Einhorn and Diane Lutz for your detailed facility analysis. Now more than ever, we need to create a caring and welcoming environment that will bring our community together for generations to come. Please stay tuned for more information on the capital project as we gear back up and move forward. When I began my presidency, the Federation officers, in conjunction with the Finance Committee, began reviewing the organizational design of our Federation and its financial structure. It was evident that Federation's core operations had greatly expanded over the last several years and were on an unsustainable financial trajectory, consuming valuable resources needed for our constituent agencies. I want to emphasize this. We had an unsustainable model. Leadership discussions on how to create the best model began prior to the pandemic and became even more critical during the COVID-19 shutdown. I am grateful for the community members engaged in determining the best path forward. We took the necessary steps, charted the best course going forward while maintaining our fiduciary responsibility to our donors. I would like to thank our dedicated and committed Federation officers, Treasurer Diane Lutz, Secretary Barry Crute, Vice Presidents Brad Gershman, Karen Rothbaum, Leo Grabowski, Jim Schwartz, Campaign Chairs Larry Turo and Jennifer Schwartz, and Assistant Officer Jamie Ratner-Rich. I want to just round applause. You each devoted so much time and integrity in our work this year. I cannot thank you enough. You all truly inspire me, and I will cherish the bonds that we have forged in working tirelessly together over the past 2 years. I would also like to thank the Finance Committee for the countless hours and commitment to the committee process. The Finance Committee met weekly with the officers to review our structure. Again, thank you to the amazing Diane Lutz, who also chaired the Finance Committee. Thank you also to the members of the Finance Committee, Leslie Rubin, Dan Cantor, Ofer Korn, Paul Kraft, Brad Bell, Gigi Marks Felcher, Barry Wormser, Eric Ratner, David Kleiman, Helen Goldstein, and Mike Rubin. These leaders are to be commended for the deliberative process they engaged in and the difficult decisions they made. We should all be proud of this strong group of leaders that faced this challenge head on and did not kick the can down the road for future leadership to address. I would now like to thank the entire board of directors for their leadership and dedication to our community. And I can think of no better person to lead us forward than our president-elect, Leslie Rubin. Leslie has proven her passion and dedication for our community as a past campaign co-chair and involvement with planning and allocations. Her great counsel has helped guide me as we worked together over the years, and I know that her calm demeanor and keen intellect will serve her and our community extremely well. Leslie is the perfect leader at the exact right time for our community. Of course, I would like to thank my family, to our children, Hannah, Ben, Sarah, and Leah, who are all here this evening. Thank you for the many meals you had to prepare for yourself, errands run for me, and times that I shushed you when I was on a Zoom event. I appreciate you allowing me to devote so much of our family time to serve our Jewish community. The biggest thank you goes to my husband, Steve, whose love and support means everything to me and enabled me to fulfill and dedicate myself to serving in this role. Most of all, I want to thank each of you for all that you do for our community and for trusting me to serve as our Federation's president for the past 2 years. It has truly been an honor. Thank you. To call on Mike Rubin, our immediate past president and chair of the nominating committee, to present the report of the nominating committee to our Jewish community represented by all of you. Mike.
Thank you, Beth. And thank you to the members of the nominating committee for your contributions and dedicated work in this process. Pursuant to the bylaws of the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis, I present the report of the nominating committee, which includes those nominated to a first or second 3-year term on the board of directors and those nominated to a 1-year term as honorary board directors. Before I begin, I would like you to pull out your cell phones because we are going to be voting for this using your text on your cell phones. And the instructions will be to follow, and we'll be reading that on the screen. So find your cell phones now. For election to a first 3-year term of office, Katie Cantor, Ilan Daniel, Murray Firestone, Emily Gerwitz, Leslie Katz, John Shapiro, Sarah Weinberger, and Martin Weiss. For election to a second 3-year term of office, Jennifer Burdey, Jack Kotler, Sheila Greenwald, and Reva Weiss. For election to a 1-year term of office as honorary board members, David Barrett, Karen Cohen, Rosalie Gusso, Art Haston, David Klapper, Gerald Kraft, Barbara Leventhal, Barb Levy, Ernie Lorch, Diane Lutz, Janie Bauer, Michael Mervis, Livia Russell, Bob Schloss, and Herbert Simon. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt the report? So as you see tonight, we are debuting a new service tonight called Text to Vote. If you've ever watched American Idol or any of those reality shows where the audience votes for their favorite contestant, you'll be familiar with this. There's no cost in texting to our toll-free number. To vote to approve this nominating slate, community members are now invited to pull out their phones and text the word SLATE, SLATE, to 833-366-0835. When you text the keyword, there will be a few texts, and you'll need to wait to be asked a question via text, and you'll need to respond to that text using A for yes or B for no. So I'll give you all some time to do that. That number again, 833-366-0835.
Didn't get anything back either. You're not the only one that hadn't gotten any response.
B for yes or B for no. Here.
I'm told we're beginning to get some responses.
We're getting some. We're rolling in. Let's hope that takes a while. We're gonna have to go again. Ooh, start again.
We're still awaiting the votes to come in. Again, this is for the entire community to vote on this slate.
Get a majority and we're at 51. Oh, we don't need a majority?
So people on Zoom, please get your texts in and we'll tally them up. All right. The ayes have it. Mazel tov and welcome to our new board members. So let's back to the nominating slate. I'll not read all the names, but I want to extend thanks to the board members continuing their terms of service on the JFGI board. So continuing a term of board service ending in 2022, Erica Abrams, Brent Epstein, Elliot Gold, Steve Klapper, Kevin Krulwich, Jamie Ratner-Rich, Cynthia Yosha Snyder. Continuing the term of board service ending in 2023, Marcy Eckhouse, Rachel Gershman, Helen Kurlander-Goldstein, Megan Maurer, Sandy Naklis, Debbie Pelletier-Blatt, Jim Schwartz, Rachel Simon, Jeff Sondhelm, Matthew Tobe, and Barry Wormser. I'd also like to thank those board members whose 2 consecutive terms of service end in 2021. Andy Friedman, Sheldon Hurst, Jeremy Klotz, Linda Maurer, and Nancy Ryder. I would now like to present the report of the nominating committee as it pertains to the slate of officers. For this part, I'm asking only that the board of directors participate in this when we vote. The slate is for officers: President Leslie Rubin, Vice President Brad Gershman, Vice President Leo Grabowski, Vice President Helen Kurlander-Goldstein, Vice President Karen Rothbaum, Vice President Campaign Jennifer Schwartz, Vice President Campaign Larry Turo, Treasurer Dan Cantor, Secretary Barry Crute, and Assistant Officer Jamie Ratner-Rich. For this part, I'll ask that only the members of the board participate, as I ask for a motion to approve this slate of officers and a second.
I move to approve the slate of officers.
I move to second this.
Oh, Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Elliot, thank you. May I ask all board members to cast their vote as per instructions on the screen? Again, text the word approve to 833-366-0835. When the keyword approve is texted, you'll get a reply message and you reply again. I have a thumbs up. Mazel tov and congratulations to our new slate of officers. So Beth, you're about to join a prestigious group of past presidents of our Jewish Federation, our distinguished life members. The Jewish Federation has had 39 presidents in its 116-year history, making it 40 tonight as we induct Beth into this esteemed leadership group. Tonight, we recognize those past presidents who are living. John Abrams, Brad Bell, Claudette Einhorn, Gigi Marks Felsher, Dr. Edward Gabovich, David Kleiman, Ofer Koren, Paul Kraft, Marty Krute, Dick Leventhal, Jerry Lichtbach, Benton Marks, Estelle Nelson, me, Stanley Telesnik, David Vonnegut Gabovich, and Walter Wolf Jr. Please join me in recognizing this esteemed group of leaders. We're honored that these past presidents have continued to stay involved in leadership roles throughout our Jewish community.
Thank you for the well wishes, Mike, and for hosting the new business portion of tonight's event, and mazel tov to our new officers and board members. It is now my pleasure to introduce Mike's better half, Leslie Rubin. Leslie is a principal in Rubin Advisors, Inc., where she has provided economic development consulting services to the private sector companies for over 30 years. Leslie holds a bachelor's degree in biology and chemistry from Erland College and a doctorate degree in biochemistry from Indiana University. Leslie is an alumnus of the Stanley K. Lacey Leadership Series and has had many participated in many community boards and committees. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome our new Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis Board of Directors President, Leslie Rubin.
Thank you very much. Let me get this microphone right. Let's see now. Oh, you can hear me now. You are a wonderful, engaging, and caring individual for whom I have a deep level of respect. During the worst of the pandemic, you doubled down in your efforts. You held us together, and you conducted yourself with grace. You even managed to laugh on occasion. During one of our recent calls, it was late in the night. It had been a long day. And I asked you, I said, Beth, is it always this intense? Is it always just this busy? And your first answer was, well, yes. And then you paused. You said, no. And then you started to, and then you proceeded to add some elaborate explanations on top of it. Then you started laughing. And by the end of that phone call, we were both laughing. We decided, okay, we can hit one more day. We can make it another day. So we truly are grateful for you. And to the community, what I would say is, please never doubt her heart or her commitment. She is a wonderful person. Yeah, give me a hug. My wonderful assistant is here tonight. Yes, the man behind the curtain.
Wow. I'm going to stand back since you have this amazing. Thank you. Goodness.
Thank you.
Wow, this is quite a show.
It says.
I can't see it. What does it say?
It says Beth Klapper, President, Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis, 2019 to 2021, with deep appreciation for your leadership and dedicated service on behalf of our community.
Thank you.
He's been excused. Well, first of all, what a wonderful evening. I have to tell you, this is my first ever hybrid event. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the team that pulled this together. They worked diligently over a long period of time, and I need to specifically acknowledge my treasurer and also the owner of Hamilton Exhibits for the equipment that we are using tonight. So please join me in a round of applause. I also need to thank my family. My husband, Mike, whom you all know, he's my beshert. My children, Sarah, who's sitting here tonight, her husband, Matt, has the kids. That's a yes. My daughter, Jennifer, and her husband, Yoni, that are out in California. They're wonderful, talented, gifted people. And then my amazing and outstanding grandchildren, Magnus, whom you probably all know, Ren, who's her own person these days, and Tall, who's a magnificent young lady. I also want to thank the staff. You've taken time to have lunch with me, to have a cup of coffee with me, and to help me educate me about all things Federation. And Gigi and Katie, God love them. They are two people who are very patient. They explain things to me, and they calm me down, and they explain things to me again, and they just keep at it. And I love them for what they are and what they've been doing for the Federation. So how did I get here? Last fall, Beth started having conversations with me about the idea of becoming the next president. My initial response was one of, I need to do my homework. I need to talk to people. I need to think about what I'm obligating myself to. I did do that. But I also began thinking about what are the words that I could share with you tonight that would be meaningful, that would provide a sense of calm, and perhaps give you a picture about the future. And then somewhere along the way, I realized it's been a hellacious 15 months. And if we believe what was said on the video tonight, I've lost 3 months and then it's now a blur. So it's hellacious 18 months, during which time we were frustrated, we were challenged, and we were tired. So I decided to put a pause button, to hit the pause button on our future for a couple of minutes and tell you a story. The story is 99.9% entertainment and 0.1% insightful. It begins in 1982. As you heard, I have a doctorate degree in biochemistry. I had begun working in Mark Farber's lab, doing research. I had also developed a keen interest in nutrition. I figured that as a biochemist, I could help convey concepts of proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals in a knowledgeable way, but also in a way that made sense to people who didn't have my background. So I started giving lectures, seminars, making connections, and before long, one thing led to another, and I was invited to do a taping, matter of fact, a series of tapings, for 5-minute programs by the local NPR affiliate, WFYI. It was aired regularly as a 5-minute insert in the morning edition program. Well, sometime after I've been doing this on a regular basis, I'm in the lab, in Mark Farber's lab one day, and I get a phone call. And the gentleman introduces himself as Coach Lee Corso. And he says, I'd like to meet with you, and I'd like to talk about my team's nutrition. So we met. And next thing I know, I'm down in Bloomington. I'm following the team around. I'm observing what they're eating. I'm observing how they're spending their days. I'm doing the nutritional assessment. I put together my report, and I have a meeting with Lee Corso, and I tell him what my observations were. Unfortunately for me, much of it was common sense. To give you a couple of examples, The team was consuming carbonated beverages at halftime. And if anybody has ever strenuously exercised, stop, drink a Coke, trying to start exercising strenuously again, you immediately know you get a cramp. Okay, so that one wasn't so difficult. The next thing I noticed about their diets was that they were eating a full steak meal less than an hour before they were out on the field. So I thought, my God, they're running out on the field with bricks in their stomach. You know, how can they possibly perform under situations like that? So I relayed my observations, my concerns, my recommendations to Lee Corso. Next thing I know, he says, okay, fine, you're going to tell them directly. So he gathered up the entire team. He gathered up all the coaches and all the assistants and all the support staff, and he marched us all into the auditorium. And he took me down, my 28-year-old self, to the front of the room and says, okay, tell them. So I proceeded to explain to the team that at halftime, we were no longer going to be drinking carbonated beverages. We were going to have lemonade and bananas because they needed to replace the potassium. Then I got to the point where I needed to tell them I was taking away the pregame steaks. That did not go over well. I ended up standing up there and realizing, you know what, this has a psychological impact. I probably better do something quick. So I said, well, we're going to give you turkey as part of that pregame meal. They begrudgingly accepted it. In the final analysis, and we did some other things like carbohydrate loading, it worked. Their performance improved. And I can tell you the best part about that whole season was the seats that Mike and I had in the stadium, because he loved it. So that was a brief story. You've probably, do we have those pictures up yet about the garden? There we go. All right, so you're going to see some pictures of gardens. And you can legitimately ask, what do gardens have to do with the annual meeting? So let me explain. I have started with a clean slate 30 years ago. It was grass and silver maple trees with some few old oaks, but that was it. There was no gardens around my house. Today, I have roughly a quarter of an acre of gardens. To go from nothing to a quarter of an acre of gardens, it takes having a vision, a plan. You have to be persistent. You have to have patience, a bit of optimism, and you have to understand the environment's going to change constantly. These are the traits and the skills that I'm hoping to bring in to assist the Jewish community over time. The last thing I'm going to tell you about myself is that I'm a student of history. I have a prop tonight. It's called The Jewish Community of Indianapolis. Interesting read, not particularly linear, but it's an interesting read. What I learned, there were 3 good examples in there I think are relevant to us today. The first one has to do with immigrants arriving in the Indianapolis community, late 1800s, early 1900s. And what you find is they're showing up with little resources. They need direct assistance, they need health care, they need dental care, they need housing. So the Jewish community, the leadership of the time, through its Jewish service agencies, began putting together classes and clinics. And it was kudos to them for recognizing the need and the new way of approaching the situation. By the mid-1920s, the environment at the federal level had changed. Immigration attitudes were becoming more restrictive. The need for these particular classes had declined. What you did see, however, was the rise of the Klan. Anti-Semitic rhetoric was commonplace, even in political circles. So the Jewish community organized again, quietly and behind the scenes, and met with leadership. But over a couple of years, they became more emboldened and decided to go directly to the media. Again, this was a new novel experience for the community. The third thing I'll share with you is that the stock market crashes in 1929. A full third of the population of the United States is out of work fairly quickly. The need for direct services dramatically increased very quickly. And the attitude of taking care of our own was suddenly at risk. How do we address this need? It was a tough concession, but a concession that was made by the leadership to, for the first time in the history of the Indianapolis Jewish community, to be willing to accept federal aid through the work and relief programs put out by the Roosevelt administration. Each of these three examples is unique in the fact that we still have the impact and feel the impact of those particular activities today. The first one, classes through service agencies. The second one in terms of the direct media approach, JCRC today. The third one in terms of reliance, I won't even go so far as saying dependence, but reliance on federal assistance to help us enhance the ability to serve people, more people than we could otherwise. So why do I mention this? I mention this because we're at a pivotal moment. And this is the part where I have to read because I don't want to mess it up. The pivotal moment, the Jewish community understood, as I said, the changes that were needed. And as I said, it's a pivotal moment. The impact of a vision that we implement today could have impact for decades to come. So what's this vision? I can address the how and the when at this moment, but I can't tell you all the what. The how is by working as a team. It's throughout the entire campus with our sister agencies, by engaging you, and by including, by leveraging the gifts, talent, and skills of my amazing rock star officers that I have. And they truly are amazing. By also including people like Beth and Gigi and Katie and Diane and others who I know that have insight and knowledge that can help us articulate the what. The when is simple. It starts today. So stay tuned. We will be seeking your help, and I'm hoping you will respond. We very much need to be moving forward together. I have some practical items that we do need, and I don't want you to be depressed coming out of this room, so I'm going to lighten it back up for you. In the few remaining minutes, I have news to share with you. We do not sit back. We're going to be a team that's very active. The membership of the search committee for the new executive director is well underway. I hope to be able to announce the team, the entire team, and the leadership of that team very shortly. Chair assignments for finance, investment, and endowment are in process. Dan, the officers, Beth, and I will examine the role of the remaining committees during the summer months and share with you our vision, thoughts, and recommendations. The annual campaign is well underway. You heard about that already. It's off to a strong start, and I thank Jennifer and Larry for their continued guidance and efforts, and for the JFGI staff, Michael Skolnick and others, for their continued work. And you've also heard about the capital campaign. Now I'm referring to it as evaluating decades-old physical infrastructure and looking at options. I haven't quite assigned it a full name yet. There's going to be more information coming out in Q3 and Q4 of this year, so to keep an eye out for things about that. Finally, one last little small business item. I'm putting forth a consent agenda with my appointments to the executive committee. It should pop up here on the screen in a moment. This list does not include officers, life members, or constituent agency presidents whose seat on the executive committee is stated in our bylaws. Can I ask for a motion to approve, please?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Could I have a second, please? Thank you. Will all the members of the board of directors please cast their vote? Now, it's going to be the same methodology as before, and the number will be up here. Oh, good Lord, I don't have my glasses on. Mike, text executive. Mike, would you mind standing up and tell everybody the number again, please? All right. I didn't put my contacts in.
Text the word executive to 833-366-0835. That number again, 833-366-0835.
He does a great job, doesn't he? All right. So I'm just not quite tall enough to do this without standing on my toes. They're rolling in. Good. Thank you. We are good. Thank you all. All right. One more motion. Thank you all. With that in mind, I'd like to accept a motion to adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Do we have that? All right. Thank you, everyone, for your time tonight. We appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you.